cold out there, man.
Keeps
You
me
know, Wim
awake.
Hof in it.
Yeah, Wim Hofen. That's all right. Well, should we get down to business?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, sick. Hello, and welcome to episode 22 of Speaking from Water. I have Alex Llinas on the line here, and he is maybe, I think, the best free diver in the world currently. I'm going to claim that. He's probably not going to claim that, but I've been doing lots of research on my man and talk about an inspirational story from start to finish. And I'm just so excited to have you on the line, Alex. From Bogota to the United States to finding your passion later in life to just then crushing it on the world stage. Um, Welcome to Speaking from Water. It's an honor to have you.
Man, the pleasure and the honor is all mine, Sean. It's been a long time following your athletic endeavors, and unfortunately, we've never been able to kind of go against each other. But it's still like something I'd like to happen. And much respect to you for everything that you do, both as a father and a waterman. We both love the same lifestyle, and it's amazing to be a part of this. Two, I am not one of the best. I am maybe one of the best in the world, but I'm definitely not the best in the world. And there's a bit of a gap for the next level, just to make that clear. I don't want to pretend to be anything I'm not. Um, I have done pretty well for someone that's a beginner, quote unquote, to the freediving, competitive freediving scene. So I did get medals at world championships and set a few continental and national records. And I mean, exceeded my expectations and most people's, I would say everyone's expectations for for free diving in my first season. Um, love being here and chatting with you, man. I'm really pumped about this.
Well, look, I want to get down in detail on all of that because I've been following you really deeply for about 2 years now. And just a little backstory on how I came in contact on this earth with Alex. It was during the height of COVID. I was in a little backstory on me that a lot of people might not know from this program is I compete with the Wrightsville Beach Ocean Rescue Team, and every year I do the tryout, and every year I pride myself on doing so. And 2020, I wasn't allowed to do the tryout because of COVID. And I heard the guy with the best time was this dude Alex who showed up out of nowhere, and I met you on the south end in your stand, and we got to chatting. I was just like, whoa. And at the time, Jeremy Owens, the late great Jeremy Owens, I called him up. I was like, man, you guys just keep bringing in the heat on the squad. Like, how are you doing it? And Alex, I ever since have been following you and just been completely impressed with your whole story. Um, I, I want to kind of start first. What are you doing right now? What's going on in your world?
Well, at the moment, I'm taking a break from freediving because this house that I'm building is taking up all my time. And like I was telling you earlier, this has been a project, a dream of mine to have a home here that I can come back to. The past 3 years, since since the beginning of the pandemic, and when I started working on the Wakanda Forever movie, I've been homeless. Basically, relationship ended, and I was living with that person. So since then it's kind of unsettling. It's amazing because I've traveled all over the world and seen so many beautiful places, but Wilmington is home to me, and I wanted to come home to something. And so this project is I've been working on it for a long time, but it's also something that is important to me to have a place to feel comfortable, to relax, to see my friends in the off season, and not having to come into Wilmington and ask to bunk with people, or if there's an extra room, or pay the exorbitant Airbnb prices. So this has been a long time coming, and this project to build me a little home is what is taking up the majority of my life at this moment. Still swimming a little bit. Water is starting to get a little cold in Wilmington, so sporadically getting out there and surfing and just enjoying the off season. Soon enough, I'll begin preparation for the next season. At first, just general fitness and gym and strength, and probably will not get to do pool until beginning of next year, and def until middle of next year, probably April timeline. So when you start free diving, and especially if you go, big depths, it takes a toll on your immune system, on your central nervous system. Like it's pretty taxing and mentally is very challenging. So most free divers end up taking an off season, and this is what's happening now, taking care of business basically.
Excellent, excellent. So you've been all over the world. Let's kind of start here though in Wilmington. What is it about Wilmington that makes you so stoked on being here? Tell us a little bit about that, because I too have been to a lot of places, and I've explored a lot of beaches, and I keep coming back to the uniqueness of this area we live in, and I kind of like to hear your perspective on that.
I mean, it's going to sound very similar to yours. For one, there's the people, and being around here for a long time, forged a lot of friendships in different little groups of things that I enjoy. So I have my running group, my swimming group, my surfing group, my lifeguarding group, my like all these, my cycling group, my windsurfing group. So when I come home, I have no shortage of things to do, and the people that I've been around always support me, and it's so good to see them. So number one for me would be the people, and then very, very close behind is just what this town has to offer. I'm not a big fan of huge cities, and for me Wilmington is kind of the right size, where you still have like all the conveniences, or most of the conveniences of a big city, but it still has a small town feeling, especially if you've been here for a long time, although it is growing very rapidly. And more important than that is what the water has to offer. This place is surrounded by athletes and watermen and people that do rad stuff, and it's for a reason. Like the ocean here is amazing. You have the intercoastal waterway for fishing and hanging out and boating. You have the Atlantic right there, the Gulf Stream a few miles out, Frying Pan Tower. The ecosystems in the ocean that we have are very unique and special, and the beach is beautiful. I mean, there was not to love here, man. I just wish there was a little bit more elevation, and that would be it. Like this would be the perfect place in the world.
So elevation helps with your training.
Well, no, not really. I mean, it can, but like if you do elevation training, that only lasts for so long. It's very shortly after you go to sea level, then you lose the benefits of the adaptation for high elevation. But no, just for cycling, for mountains, for a little bit more
Get that
terrain and more fun.
extra, yeah, that extra power.
Yeah, like like you go to California, and I wouldn't compare California to this, but there's access to mountain biking trails, and like right off the coast. Here, you got to go a long ways to get some elevation, some terrain, and to go ride mountain bikes or snowboard or whatever it is.
Sick. Yeah. It's amazing, amazing place. So I want to take it back to the beginning, and I want to go back to Colombia. Your dad, from what I understand, was a legend in himself. He was a really well-renowned surfer in his time and in his location in Colombia. And first, I'd like to know a little bit more about him and kind of what he was all about, and then how his influence came to you growing up, and where the passion was found.
Well, I mean, my dad is really truly unique human being in many, many ways. He was always around the ocean, and my life is what it is directly because of his influence. Since birth, my dad took me to the ocean. He wasn't a surfer, but he was a windsurfer. So
Mm.
he was a competitive windsurfer in Colombia, and he taught me to windsurf at like age 7. Hence, I'm one of the very few guys that still does that around here. But just in general, our life revolved around the ocean for the majority of my childhood. We lived in the coast in Barranquilla, which is the northern part, and then he always made sure, because he wanted the same things I did, that we were coastal until it wasn't an option. But he was just an adventurer, or a person that did not go by convention. He forged his own path. He was a badass in every sense of the word. He was a waterman before that term was coined. He didn't even understand what that was, but he did everything related to the water, and he passed that down to me. in addition to, man, my dad was an activist and environmentalist, and he paid the ultimate price for that reason. And much admiration for his bravery, his courage to fight against people that are much much bigger than we can imagine, with power and tools and weapons and armies, and he never backed down. And I mean, he was really truly a special man. Even in his 70s, he was still a badass. Like, he was still just like, he moved around so much, and he lived so high in the mountains. Like, to get to the nearest place, you had to walk 30 minutes to get to the grocery store, or to not even the grocery store, to a store that sold some kind of food. So he lived off the land, self-sufficient, and in the middle of Tayrona, which is a very beautiful area, a national park in Colombia. And man, he was just a very, very special human being. I think they broke the mold when they made him.
You tell his story very well with such passion, and you were a young man growing up there for a bit. Am I right? In Colombia.
I moved to the States when I was 16.
Okay, so you're pretty much your formidable years were spent in South America. Your father was
Exactly.
an entrepreneur, from what I understand. Is that right?
Man, he was a very restless soul that had no fears. So he tried a lot of different things in Colombia, not so successfully. At first, when I was growing up, until we moved to San Andres, my dad worked as an engineer for Intercore, which was, I think at that point, was a subsidiary of Exxon, and the coal mines in northern part of the country. And he was working on this 4x4 uh, typical mine thing, where 4 days on, 4 days off, and he just hated his work, kind of like me. It's funny, he told me so many times that engineering was just not the nice, like, and even though our engineering paths look completely different, it's like, you shouldn't do it. Not just, we moved around so much, and my life was so unstable with my dad, because very nomadic, and I just wanted to have a job, like an engineering job that was stable. But turns out I'm just like my dad, and ended up hating him just like he did. But after we moved to San Andres, he tried his hand at several little businesses, and to be honest with you, none of them prospered. He lost everything that he had made during the engineering years, and that's why we had to move inland to Medellin at that point, because it got pretty rough in San Andres.
But he still found the time to give you the ocean. And how did he do that?
Well, of course. I mean, that's the reason why he wanted to have his own business, so he could have control of his time. And I mean, I understand how that works now. I didn't quite, when I was young, understand why he couldn't just have a normal job, and like not take the risk and the instability associated with it. But time he had, he was the man of his time, and he loved doing all the things that I love doing now. So it wasn't a chore for him to go to the beach and go windsurfing, or go diving, or whatever it was, is something that he would have done anyways, and I just happened to be along with him. And San Andres, that was to me, it was the most wonderful time in my childhood. It's such a special, tiny, tiny little island. It's like if you put Carolina Beach in the middle of the Caribbean, and then the closest landmass is 80 miles away or 100 miles away. So, which is Nicaragua. It's like its own little bubble, but at that point, it was a very innocent island. Like, I could hitchhike anywhere. I could walk around and ride my bike, around the island, get in trouble into, naughty things without getting into too much of the bad trouble. So it's beautiful. The ocean is crystal clear, and yeah, we spent a lot of time definitely enjoying the ocean.
And this is where you found that you were really good at diving.
Kind of, yeah. I had a group of windsurfing buddies, and I remember this very specifically. We would have breath hold contests in the pool, and I would always be able to beat them, and by a large margin when I was a kid. And I was able to, probably dive down like 30, 40 feet by the time I was like 8, 9 years old. without, like get to the bottom and grab sand with no fence and just, do my mess down there. And which was, a lot of adults couldn't even do that. And that came pretty easy to me. Even before then, when I would go on vacation to see my grandmother in the mainland, we'd have like, like contests who could do the most laps underwater, not in a like a 25-meter pool or anything, just in like the complex pool, touching walls and pushing back and forth. And I was always able to do more than anybody. Everybody was like, "Whoa, what's going on?" And I never, didn't know why or how. Just maybe I tolerated pain, and I wasn't around very fit people, or who knows.
And so you moved to Medellin and eventually to North Carolina, and this time was spent not at the coast anymore. How did that affect your state of mind?
Well, like all this moving around, you build mechanisms to cope with it, and you find how to how to make friends quickly, how to find outlets. For me, I was a very hyperactive kid. I was never into like none of the bad stuff, but I was definitely out of control doing naughty kid things. And if I didn't have like an outlet to kind of keep me at bay, then I would just do even more naughty things. So at that point, I started riding bikes. So BMX, when I was in Medellin, BMX became my thing for a little while, until we moved to North Carolina. But there was a time like when we moved from San Andres, that was rough, man. It ended not very good for my dad there. So we moved to Medellin because that's where my family was from. My grandmother was there, and my great grandmother had a big like a mountain compound that we could use to live there while my dad got settled. And even then, meanwhile, at first I didn't go to Medellin. At first, I went to Barranquilla to stay with my great uncle that kind of helped raise me since, I mean, I was very close with him. Then I'm reunited with my dad, and then my dad went to North Carolina. And before going to North Carolina, before leaving the country, I had to get a permit for my mother to leave the country, which was not possible because my mom was she was I mean, she had mental health and drug issues, so I had to stay behind and try to find a way to get my mom declared legally insane, so my dad could be the only person that could give me so my dad wouldn't have to have my mother's authorization to leave the country since I was a minor. So I lived basically after San Andres. I lived like a year in Barranquilla, about 2 years in Medellin, and then another 8 months to a year in Barranquilla again before leaving to meet my dad.
Sounds very stressful. You have a hallmark in your history of handling stress, though it seems very well. On a macro level, how is this a seeming thing, or do you have what is your mechanism, and does it relate at all to your ability to um, uh, stay underwater for a long time?
I mean, it's an interesting question, and I've asked myself those things. I notice sometimes when I'm in the face of adversity, I take it on as a challenge, and this happens so many times. I think I developed that as a coping mechanism without understanding why. Like we have childhood trauma and things that happen, and then your body or mind chooses to go a certain path, and I was always you know mentally strong and chose to react as seeing things as a challenge and just overcoming them. It wasn't fun. It wasn't like, yay, I'm gonna go do this. It's just like I have no choice but to overcome this. Other times has been like the typical stubborn thing that like, okay, I'm gonna prove them wrong, or okay, so this is how it's gonna be. I'm gonna do this. And it's great to cope with those things, but it doesn't, like all those traumas create a personality that has impacted me that causes me issues and challenges in relationships sometimes because I can be so headstrong and motivated by challenges and pushing myself. Um, of course, that has a huge advantage when it comes to sports and freediving and all these other things. As you know, like if you're not willing to suffer, you're not going to get better. You're not going to be able to rise to the challenge. And that's something that I guess I've learned to do is suffer and rise to the challenge.
And guys listening, like, this isn't where the suffering ends. Let's go on to North Carolina. You eventually meet up with your dad, and you then go and to go to college at Cape Fear, right?
Yeah. First, so which I'm sure we'll talk about this, but I couldn't go to a 4-year university because of my legal status. So at
Right.
that point, when we
Let's go
migrated
there.
here, we were, yeah. So we left Colombia because of the both economically and just the way that things were in Colombia was pretty dangerous. It wasn't a good environment for me, for my dad. I mean, this was right around when Pablo Escobar was, he just been murdered, and there was like still leftover cartel fights, and it was a dangerous place to be, and not much opportunity. My dad was not able to get any more engineering jobs, so we decided to come here. We came here illegally with a tourist visa, and then stayed here for a couple of years. Back then, immigration law, it was still there. It's not very friendly, but the enforcement was lagging, like it is now. You could get away with many things. So you could get a driver's license, you could still go to high school, like all those things. At least in North Carolina, you were able to do as an illegal immigrant. So for that period of time, everything was good. I was actually living in Monroe, North Carolina, with my dad, and my dad moved to Wilmington when Fran and Bertha, rolled through and leveled Riceville Beach. He was a roofer, so he quit his job and started his own roofing company. And I stayed behind in Monroe. My senior year, me and my buddy decided to go on a graduation trip. We just drove up the East Coast on kind of stopped at Hatteras and New York City and Philadelphia, and just kind of never done that. So we went all the way to Niagara Falls, and when we were in Niagara Falls, my buddy was like, "Let's go to Canada." And I'm a moron at age 16, as most of us are. And I was like, "Well, what does it take to go to Canada?" And at that point, border control was not what it is now. It's like, I just called and they're like, "Oh, you just need your driver's license," and that's it. It's like, well, shit, I got one of those. So let's go. So we went to Canada just because I was 19 and I could buy drinks. So legal drinking age was 19. And I remember this. I went there, got a 1 liter of cider, hard cider. We drank it and then got a tummy ache and then got drunk from just that. Where I was walking back to the border, and they asked me all the immigration questions, which I don't remember ever. I don't know what they were, but he asked me what citizenship I was, and I said U.S., which is not true. And then basically I got busted at the border for trying to enter the U.S. illegally and overstaying it before with um, my tourist visa. So that prompted me applying for political asylum because the reasons what I told you. I had relatives in Colombia that were my uncle, the one that I stayed with in Barranquilla, was a very important politician and governor and mayor, and they tried to kill him, and there was threats. He had bodyguards, so we just pursued that route because the options were to either be deported or to apply for political asylum. So um, during that time, I was sent to immigration jail for about a month, and it was a very traumatic experience. I always feel like I've been more of a kid than my age shows. I guess even to this point, and I can honestly say that at that age I was a freaking child, and I was in jail with fortunately with good people that were in just awful circumstances. It's not the same as going to prison or to county jail. It's like a specific for immigrants, and most of the people that come to the U.S. are fleeing something or looking for better opportunity, and the majority are good people that just happen to be in bad circumstances. So it wasn't like a gnarly experience in that sense. It's just being incarcerated at age 19, not knowing whether you'd be able to stay in the US where now all your life was, your dad was, and not having a mom that he was all I had in this life. Not I don't have any siblings, and it's like it was just really, really rough. I remember I cried every night. There was some really nice people in there that helped me get through it, and yeah, from that I applied for political asylum, and that was I was very fortunate they let me out on parole, which doesn't happen much to immigrants. I had friends that were since I was from Monroe, and Jesse Helms, Senator Jesse Helms was from Monroe. They called in favors, and I was able to get released on parole. And then 2 or 2.5 years later, I was granted political asylum. The problem is that when I was granted political asylum, since I told the immigration border guy that I was a U.S. citizen, that itself is a crime. So falsely claiming to be a U.S. citizen permanently bars you from adjusting to U.S. citizenship or residency at that point. So for 20 years or so, I was stuck in political asylum. And if you're living in the US, it's not that difficult. You know, you don't need a work permit. You're still able to, you have like a indefinite work permit basically. You're able to attend university and, you know, take advantage of government programs and loans and stuff like that. It's just the part when you want to leave the country gets extremely difficult, because you can't travel with your Colombian passport and you don't have a U.S. passport. So, I mean, that presented a whole lot of different challenges, and I was so anxious to see the world and had to give up many opportunities that came my way because of just couldn't get the travel document in time. And it's not like it was valid for a long period of time. It's only valid for a year, and most countries want you to have 6 months of validity on your travel documents. So you have like a 6 month travel window. It could take anywhere between 4 and 8 months to get the document. It was a nightmare for a long time to be able to leave the country. So I feel like that's one of the reasons also why I didn't get the chance to do the freediving thing before. It'd been a dream of mine for over a decade to pursue competitive freediving. You know, you can't do it in North Carolina. It's not possible because we don't have the conditions for deaf. But yeah.
And it sounds from the story that I understand you were then ready for some sort of security with professionalism, and you went on to get your engineering degree from NC State. Do I have that
That
right?
is correct. Yeah,
And
so I went to Cape Fear because I couldn't, because of my immigration status, I could not go to a 4 year college to a university because then they check immigration. You had to be a permanent resident. So once I got was awarded political asylum, I was able to go to NC State because you know I'm legally in the U.S. with political asylum status. During that time, my dad was deported, so we got separated again. So my senior year in college, my dad got deported to Colombia, and that itself is a whole nother story. My dad could write a book. It'd be a really interesting one. I've always told him to, but he was more interested in writing about politics than he was about his life. But that man has lived a lot. So he was actually in, he lost everything because of his deportation. They It was for possession of a firearm, and even though the firearm was not purchased illegally, he actually purchased it with a sheriff's document. My dad was an illegal immigrant, and federal law dictates that an illegal immigrant, despite on how he obtained the weapon, cannot possess a firearm. So he got thrown in jail for a year and deported immediately after. And you know, people don't realize how tough the legal system can be. You know, it's most of the time justice is not a matter of what's right or wrong. It's a matter of how much funds you have to be able to defend yourself, to pay for the right attorney, to fight whatever charges there are, to navigate the legal system so that you can come out on top. And you know, my dad, I was in charge of all that. So I had to liquidate my dad's assets. I had to, you know, try to find an attorney that we could afford, try to ask money from relatives to pay the attorney. My dad lost his roofing company immediately. The newspaper would try to keep surviving with that didn't work out, and yeah, it was really, 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 really tough, man, really challenging, and that's just like the logistical part of it. The emotional part of it was devastating, and that separated me and my dad for over a decade. um, Much over a decade, probably 15, 16 years. I didn't get to see my dad because having political asylum means I cannot go to the country I'm claiming political asylum from, and my dad could not come to the U.S. Until, I mean, ever. He was deported, so I think it's like a 25-year ban, and he wasn't interested in coming to this country because he felt he was treated so unfairly. It's not like my dad was doing bad stuff. He was, community leader, a business owner. Just he was vocal about immigration issues, and then made some choices, relationship choices that ended up affecting him. It was basically his ex was made up some BS charges so they could investigate him, and that's what prompted immigration to get involved.
Horrible.
Yeah.
And what year is this?
Oh, man. It was 2003, I want to say, because I graduated from engineering school in 2003. That's when he
And,
was deported. It probably happened in 2002, and he was in jail for a year.
and you just graduated. You're now ready to find your job that's going to be secure and give you financial stability in your life. You moved to the
Hmm.
West Coast.
That's correct. To Los Angeles or Long Beach.
Free diving is not even on the radar right now. It's just like,
At this
let's get the
moment, no.
work, let's get the work, let's get security.
Yeah, at that point, bikes, snowboarding, and windsurfing were kind of what I like to do. Freediving wasn't a thing yet, and there's good mountains around California. I always was curious about it. And then there was a windsurfing scene. I hadn't actually windsurfed in a long time then, but I was a little bit excited about it. And yeah, like, it's California, you got to see it. I honestly didn't enjoy my time in California as much as I should have. It was hard to make friends in the industry that I was. I was working as a plant engineer, so the people you surround yourself with are just not into the things, and that's why I go back to like what I like about Wilmington so much is the people, because they're so easy to find people that have things in common with you that want to get rad, and over there, I'm sure there were, but they weren't where I was. So when I was there, I was homesick. I really wanted to. All my friends were like buying houses and going on surf trips, and like having fun and starting to make money, and I was there, and I was looking. I mean, now I wish I had bought, but looking at house prices there, I was like, oh my god. And I'll never own a house here. And if I'd known then what I know now, then it would have been a different story. But yeah, it was. It just seemed. I just miss being here, and I didn't. Like I said, I don't like big cities.
How long did you last?
About 2 years, 2.5 years.
And what
Yeah,
made
then.
you say, "Hey, this I'm going back. I'm going back to what I love."
Well, we've been looking for a way to go back, and I was actually married at that point, and she was from North Carolina, so she wanted to come back as well. And we just missed our friends and our family, and the support, and we wanted to own a house and do that thing, and yeah, I just missed everything from the East Coast. And I was in, I mean, I snowboarded a lot when I was in California and windsurfed a bit, but other than that, like that was it, man. And sometimes I would go to the mountain by myself because I didn't really have like a bunch of bros to go snowboarding with. Most of the time I was by myself. So I just, yeah, just kind of miss being here in a smaller town where you knew people, where people want to do the same things you wanted to do.
So you come back, and what was the precipice moment of you rekindling your love for free diving?
Well, I mean, honestly, didn't even know what freediving was. I take that back. I had watched the Grand Blue or the Big Blue, and when I was a young kid in Colombia, and I knew that that existed, but I thought that was like a stunt and riding the sled, and that just seemed crazy. And and I didn't like couldn't relate to the numbers that they were because of the meters, and I didn't understand it and didn't even follow it enough to know. I just know it looked like wow, that was pretty crazy. But when I came back, I wanted to go spearfishing, and I had heard some buddies that have been spearfishing, and a friend of mine was actually dating the sister of the guy that owned the Omer, the distribution for Omer products here in Wilmington. And before that, like I had started to see like spearfishing was starting to get a little bit not popular. It was very fringe, but I saw some pictures of people shooting mahi. It was actually my buddy Ryan McInnes that took that picture, and and I was like, man, I really want to do that. And then I got more curious and bought some equipment from my buddy Mark. Now he owns Maverick American or Maverick America. But back then he distributed Omer products. So bought those guns and started going to the jetty. I was living in the South End, not too far from where you used to live on
No
Water
doubt.
Street.
Yeah.
And we had like a little boat. We had a lift, and I had a little Pioneer boat, man. And I was burning that jetty up like 4 or 5 times a week, man. Just like going as much as possible and getting super stoked in it. And what I had started talking. I think well, I used to date Tara that worked at Tower 7, and like everybody knew everybody in Riceville Beach, so she put me in touch with Ryan, and we started like becoming friends, and I just started asking around about what to do next. I wanted to get better. I wanted to go out offshore. I didn't want to just be stuck in the jetty forever. And someone suggested to take a class. So that point, I was in between jobs, but and there was only two instructors in the U.S. that taught freediving courses. It was Martin Stepanek and Kirk Crack, or if there was more, I didn't know about him. So those were two options, and they were both in Florida at that moment, at that point. So I just went, and I went straight to a level 2 because I wanted to get the most that I could. And, like traveling to Florida, logistics, getting there where you're kind of in between jobs and broke is a big part of the cost of it. So I like even got on a payment plan to pay for my freediving course and paid it off before I went. I was fortunate enough to take the class with Martin Stepanek, and at that point, he was it. He was the baddest motherfucker alive. He was 13th time world record holder, and he held. I think at that point he held all the world records. Was the deepest man alive without assistance, and taking that class changed my life. Um, it made me realize kind of how how much potential it unlocked just in such a short period of time. And even though then I thought people that did freediving were crazy because I'm in for depth for competition because I looked at Martin's numbers and I was just so pumped to get to 100 feet. And then this guy going like 420 feet, I was like, dude, I'm dying to get to 100 and I wouldn't even be a quarter of the way there. Like, how is this possible? It's not within me, like this can't be done. But I was still really stoked to progress so quickly from going to the jetty at 30, 40 feet, like struggling to get into 100 feet and seeing that was possible. Like the first time I ever did static breath hold was like 5 minutes and 20 seconds. And I was better than everybody in the class. And it just like started to be like, oh man, this is really interesting. I want this to be a big part of my life. Maybe I can, do something with it. And I just became obsessed with it, became an instructor within a year, and then started teaching for the next decade and had some opportunities to travel with freediving. But obviously they were limited by my immigration status. So I was exposed to competitive freediving, but I couldn't do it because finances, work, training, immigration status, all those other factors.
So what year was the time when you first took this class?
2009, I want to say 9 or 8.
Okay. And then you come back to Wilmington, and then when was it that you started going to Puerto Rico?
That was shortly after. I think 2000 and a year or two after. Me and my buddy Joe started teaching. The waterman survival curriculum came out maybe a year or two after um, we became instructors. So we were the first to get certified as waterman survival instructors. And we just went in Puerto Rico. Joe had been going to Puerto Rico for since he was a kid, and we started teaching there in probably 2010 or 11.
And that's when you're like, oh wait, I can actually make money from this. This can be a professional job. Puerto Rico's in America. I can go there, come back to mainland.
Well, at that point, I mean, honestly, freediving has never been a money grab for me. It's been the opposite. It's been a gigantic hole where you throw money at and doesn't get filled up. And even, if you go to Puerto Rico to teach a class, I'd be lucky to break even. We got the expenses of traveling there, of lodging, car rentals, food, all the things that, it just never got to be very profitable. But I was passionate about it. I enjoyed teaching. I love being in the water. I like traveling. Puerto Rico is still, I think it's my favorite place in the world. I don't know. Maybe there's another one there that I like, but I found like Puerto Rico to be somewhat similar to Rysel Beach as far as the people that were interested in doing all the same fun things that I wanted to do. So it was not hard to jump into the biking scene, jump into the windsurfing scene, into the surf scene, the diving scene, like, and I made some friendships through the classes that allowed me to make contacts and immediately have friends. Teaching there for 10 years, you meet a lot of people go through your courses, and you build a community, and I'm fortunate enough to have made some great friendships from that.
Can you tell us a little bit about the water in Puerto Rico and what that's like?
Puerto Rico to me is like a cheaper Hawaii or a closer Hawaii or a not so fancy Hawaii. It offers so much, man. The waves are incredible. You have a big, obviously it's no Jaws, but Tres Palmas is the biggest wave in the Caribbean, and it's not just anything to be like, yeah, Caribbean, whatever. That thing can break 45 feet. But in addition to that, you just have consistent swell in the winter. You have a lot of water, a lot of time to surf. Really, really nice waves. The the ledge is like not even a mile away from the coastline. So if you want deep water, you can have it. If you want reef, it's right there. The wind, you have consistent trade winds with waves. So the wave sailing for windsurfing is epic. It's it's actually insane as far as wave sailing goes. And some spots are, I mean, it's just a beautiful place, man. It's jungle, there's mountains, there's coffee, there's cycling, there's swimming. I mean, it's just awesome. The water is like you can go to places offshore to go spearfishing. The spearfishing is great. There's so it just has so much to offer. And I've been one of those people, unfortunately, and it's my fault, that when I go to Puerto Rico, I typically just stay between San Juan and Rincon. So I haven't really seen the rest of the island. I'm been confined most of the time, 90% of the time, between Aguadilla and Rincon. And I just love just that little area. I can only imagine what the rest of the island has to offer.
While we're on the subject of land beauty and aesthetics of water, I've seen just incredible photos of you in deep water that's just so crystal clear. And I would like for you to kind of let us know, from your opinion, what is the one spot that you've been in your life where you're like, take me back there. That water was just the best water I've ever seen. And can you
Well,
describe that?
this is it's a funny or interesting question because in freediving, one of the things you don't get to enjoy much is the water, and I mean like visually. Like it's a very inward journey. So and most of the time we don't have goggles, or if we do have goggles, they're flooded with water. So like seeing things is just it's a practical matter. It's not a matter of enjoying the beauty. Like the beauty of freediving for depth is all inwards. And even though I get the pictures because everybody wants to, and you can tell what the conditions look like from the surface, as far as when you're deep, you're so focused on other things that yes, you can tell what the water quality looks like when it's bad, more so than when it's good, And but I am fortunate to have been to a lot of different places, and they all have so many different things to offer. It's hard to pinpoint one because one has more beautiful like visibility, or the other one has better inland stuff. One is jungly, the other one is a desert. One has very nice access. One temperature is colder, the other one's warmer. One has thermoclines, one doesn't. One's dark. It's just so many factors that it's really hard to pick a place that has it. That beats everyone outright. It just kind of depends on what you want. I will say that one of the things that I haven't found yet is a place where I can not just free dive, but free dive and do all the other things that I enjoy. And that has been honestly one of the most challenging things of being a professional in the sport is giving up surfing, is giving up wind sports, is giving up cycling. I mean, not to mention traveling with that stuff would be pretty difficult, but I have that would be the place that if I can find depth in Puerto Rico without current, then I would settle up. I'll just be there all the time.
So you're just laying a bunch of things on me that as a person who doesn't free dive didn't even think about, like the goggles, the pressure you can't see. So you want water in there. Am I reading that right?
Yeah. So for me, I wear goggles. This is freediving is so weird. It's because just water flow. That we're very sensitive, and we have receptors in the area near our orbital sockets in our eyes, and they're very sensitive. And for some people, it actually can won't let you it'll make more difficult to relax, which equalization is dependent on relaxation 100%. So and not just, I mean, if you're diving 100 feet, yeah, or 30 meters, you can BS your way through equalization. Once you go past, like, 200 feet, 150 feet, you have to be extremely relaxed, A, not to injure yourself, but B, to be able to maintain the air volume in your cheeks to be able to equalize, or to reverse packet to equalize. And the goggles are just to cover the water flow of your eyelashes and these nerves that are in your eye, and it makes it easy to relax. For me, a lot of people don't wear anything, but they are filled with water because, like you said, they can't. If I was to wear swimming goggles and took them to 300 feet, they would suck the eyeballs out of my eye sockets just to fill the void. It creates a vacuum literally. It's like you put a super strong vacuum hose to your eyeballs. So they're just filled with fluid. You can see somewhat. You get adjusted to seeing through the water, but it's just yeah, it's mostly for comfort.
All right. You hold multiple Colombian records. You just got silver, as I understand, in the world. Um, Take us through a dive of that magnitude. Uh, what leads up to the preparation as far as I don't like maybe the hours before, the day before, and then kind of
Yeah.
describe like what it is when you're down there, like what's going through your head, how is your body feeling, and then what's the when you reach the point where you turn, how do you know that that's where you need to turn? It's because one from my studies before we did this interview, there's something where I believe 50 people die a year doing free diving. That's what I read. And it's so dangerous because you get so relaxed, from what I understand, that you just want to keep doing it. It's like it feels good. So I want to know from your perspective what this is.
Let me pin the safety subject for after I do this, because this like taking you through a dive is probably going to be a time consuming endeavor, and I'll forget
Let's
to talk about
okay, all right.
safety,
We'll go to safety in a
which I
second
feel is really
compartment.
important. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, on a typical, say, if we'll go through a competition day, freediving is the most emotionally charged and mentally challenging sport that I can imagine by far. It's not like when you and I line up for a race, for say the tryouts. Like we're pumped, we're hyped, we're nervous in a good way, and we use that energy to bust out and do our thing. That's not super counterproductive in freediving. So you have to maintain a calm demeanor. You have to be focused. You have to be relaxed, and that itself can be very stressful. Like imagine if any thoughts that enter your mind take you down a rabbit hole, stress you out, make you nervous, all that stuff. So you got to block those, and it's really, really hard work. And honestly, the anxiety for me and for a lot of people begins the night before, knowing that you have a big dive. Oftentimes, it's a personal best, or it's a dive that's going to be challenging that you've only done, once or twice, or it's your personal best for the season, which sometimes we have to start fresh from, every season, not fresh from scratch, but we are not where we left off. So the night before, you try to take it easy, relax, have a light night, dinner. Sleep is very crucial if you can make it, if you don't let anxiety get the best of you. In the morning, you wake up, and a lot of free divers have different routines. They mostly involve stretching, both your muscles, but also importantly, your respiratory muscles, your diaphragm, your intercostal muscles, and get all that prepped up for a dive. Then there's meditation. And me and a lot of people struggle with equalization. So we'll do some equalization exercises to kind of, loosen up the ears. And so that routine, lasts about hour and a half. First thing I wake up is have something in my stomach, and then start, that process of the routines, because you don't want to go to the dive line with a bloated belly or too much food, but you also don't want to go there too hungry. So those are it's like racing in other sports. You gotta time your meals to what your metabolism can handle. So after you do all your stretching and relaxing and your meditation, you'll head to the competition side. Oftentimes they'll have boats that take you to the line. In the case of Vertical Blue, you just swim out, or a couple of spots you swim out to the competition line. Uh, in You're allowed to warm up either 30 or 40 minutes before your dive time. So what I like to get there, to have as much time as possible, to never be rushed. For me, is very important that I don't get rushed, because when I'm overwhelmed or when I have too many things going on is when things tend to go, when I get more nervous. And so I want to take my time doing everything. I choose to do a warm up. Some people choose not to warm up. My warm up consists of I go down to about 15 meters, and I do a static breath hold. 50 meters, about 48, 50 feet, and I do a static breath hold there for about 2 minutes and come up. There's different schools of thought and how long your warm up should be. There, you don't want to, or it's my opinion that you don't want to exert yourself too much before your big dive. So 2 minutes is comfortable enough to kick in the mammalian dive reflex, and to kind of get you adjusted to the water, and feeling good. After that, I'll take a little bit of a break, surface break, breathe up, relax some more, and then I'll do another dive that will just be what we call FRC, which is basically an exhale dive, and I'll test my equalization by putting air in my cheek and seeing how far I can go down with exhale lungs, and kind of test things out, and just get because that's basically the same thing that happens during the dive, just in a compressed time. So I'll do that, then I'll head to the platform or the buoy or whatever, and just chill. If it's the platform, I'll lay down, uh, try to get in the shade, not be uncomfortable, not sweat, not get too cold. So manage your body temperature as well as you can, and your comfort, and just relax and try to stay focused without letting nerves get to you. And that can be a very challenging thing. It's to not think about the dive. About 10 minutes before the my official top, I get in the water, I wet my face, and then start. I have a conversation. I have a conversation with my dad, because I dedicate every dive to him, and then I just continue through my, like maybe do some visualization. I do that in the platform as well, just to kind of go through the things that I may be sticky or having issues with in the training, or like things I need to remember from the previous dive, and then I just try to let everything go. About 5 minutes from my official top, I will try to go to the line. Sometimes I'll allow it, sometimes it won't be until 3 minutes, and then you go into a type of meditation and breathing, exerting the least amount of energy, and until your dive. About 30 seconds before the dive, I'll take my last breath and begin my packing. And packing is this method that we use to get more air into our lungs. So I'll take my big breath and then I'll top it off with these packs. Depending on which discipline I'm doing, I do anywhere between 30 and 40 packs when I'm flexible enough, because this is something that you have to work up to. You can injure yourself. I probably, even now, if I try to do 40 packs, it wouldn't be a good idea. So then I'll start my dive. At the beginning of the dive, I try to maintain relaxed. This is very fortunate. You and I come from a swimming background, and we understand how important it is to be efficient in the water. And that's one of the advantages that I have in free diving, is that I can exert myself not too much and still make ground. So I try to control my strokes, make sure that I'm not generating tension, and take my time and be as efficient as possible. If this is, for example, a no fin dive, I'll set my alarms for about 12, 13 meters, and I'll take a mouthfeel. Mouthfeel is just putting it in your mouth, like, so I'll do one of those. Then I'll take a stroke, and then I'll top off one more time, because the mouthfeel gets smaller. So I'll top up again, and then depending on where I am, I might take a kick or a full stroke, and then I'll take it one more time, a quick top off, and then after that, I do nothing. I have some straps like that go right by my thigh, like by my crotch, and I hook my thumbs in there, just a little bit more streamlined and relaxed. And I keep my eyes open and keep my attention on the line, because what can happen oftentimes is, if you close your eyes, you have a sensation of movement, but you don't know in which direction. So you can start to veer away from the line, or you can free fall like this, where it's slower, or have like a weird body position. So one of the things that helps me maintain a good body position is to be really close to the line, have the line in sight. I will start counting. So depending on the dive, I know roughly how much time it takes me to get to the bottom from my last charge. Once I do my last charge, I'll start counting. And that also, it does many things. For one, it keeps my brain occupied in the medial task that doesn't consume too much oxygen. It also allows me to know whereabouts I'm in the dive, seconds equal meters kind of deal. And then it'll prepare me for when I'm getting to the end, to touchdown. I also have another alarm that will go off about, depending on the depth, maybe 7 to 10 meters. Oh no, 7 to 5 meters before the plate, to let me know that the plate is coming, and so I can pay attention, because now you have to do things a little bit different. You have to look out for the candy cane, so you can turn around and grab the tag. At this moment, and during this dive, all I'm focused on, and after my last charge, because I have difficulties with equalization, is basically staying relaxed and managing the air that's in my cheeks. So that's the air that you have to use to equalize. Going back to pressure, your lungs get compressed so much, they get compressed smaller than you can physically make them. So you cannot get any more air out of your lungs as you're descending. So that's why the air has to stay in your cheeks. When I get to the plate, I grab the tag. I use the tags are made of Velcro, the female Velcro, and I have like a male Velcro on my suit. So I just slap the tag on the Velcro, and then I begin my ascent. It's beneficial to take a pull to kind of, when to switch your momentum from going downwards to going upwards. But, and this is what happened in my last dive where I was going for a continental record and the US national record. There's a zone that's called a candy cane that's marked. And, you don't have mass, so you're not seeing very clearly. I grabbed like this much, couple inches above the candy cane and disqualified my dive. But it does help. Yeah, it does help to grab the line and pull. So I'll take a pull from the line and then I'll begin swimming up. I try to swim a little bit stronger than I do on the way down, but very controlled. I never sprint. I never. It's almost like a cool down swim. About that speed is what I would describe when I'm swimming up. I count my strokes as well, just to give me a reference to where I am, and or my kicks, depending on which discipline I'm doing. And I know roughly if I'm doing, say, a 75-meter dive, it'll take about 26 strokes. And I know that roughly I should see the first safety if he's at 30 meters about 17 strokes. So I know, and I also have alarms that tell me every 10 meters where I am. And I find it useful because some people manage, like, they approach dives differently. Some people don't want to know anything. Uh, I I like to have information because it distracts me and it also kind of helps me know where I am. So yeah, I know that after certain strokes, I'm supposed to be here. This amount of strokes, I'm supposed to be here. This amount of strokes, I'm supposed to be there. And try to focus on technique and make sure that I'm not sliding elbows or, opening my legs too much, or, trying to keep your mind focused on a task is helpful. Then you see the safety, first safety in a competition is typically around 30 meters, sometimes 40. And you'll start swimming. I'll try to keep him in sight. This is about when you start having contractions and it gets uncomfortable. So you're having to manage these contractions and keep swimming. You may get a little bit more hypoxic and you can start feeling it at that point, a little bit of lactic. It doesn't affect me too much. But then then you get the next safety and the last safety. And those last 5 meters are very crucial. About the 10-meter mark, when I see the last safety, I'll take one more stroke and reposition my hands, remove the nose clip, reach up for the line. So you want to be high on the line, your arm high on the line. So if it's dipping, you're not going underwater. And then I'll take my recovery breaths. But at that point, you've put your body through a lot. So it's easier said than done. When you're hypoxic, this task, you're confused. So it's like you have to practice doing them over and over. And sometimes you make mistakes. Sometimes I forget to exhale before the surface, which can cause a hypoxic scenario at the surface. Sometimes I want to remove my nose clip. Other times it's like there's a lot going on in your mind. A lot of people ask me, when do you start feel the dive, like the consequence of the dive, or when do you start being like, okay, so when I arrive at the plate, I should be feeling really good. I should not have any discomfort. And typically that's the case. It takes about 20, 30 meters from the bottom before I start feeling the discomfort and start kind of telling how the dive is going. And I'll start having contractions shortly after that. And depending on how strong those are, you can kind of tell how your dive is doing. I try to ignore them anyways and just continue to the surface. At the surface, once you do your recovery breaths, then you have to give the surface protocol. And if you have the tag, and then they should give you a white card. If not, then you get a yellow or a red card.
So when you breach the surface and you've just done like your personal best, it's the gold. Like what's that feeling like?
Oh, it's incredible, man. So much work is put into a season of diving, and so many variables and unknowns you go through, even during the dive, not just through the season, but during a particular dive when you're doing PB territory. Is always, sorry, Sean. Sorry, like it's always very nerving to to not know, because you never know in freediving. That's such a mentally taxing sport. It's like within any given day, you might be 10% of your baseline performance. You could be 10% better, you could be 10, 15, 20% worse. And sometimes you have no idea why. So making a dive, especially if it's a significant dive, a competition dive, a record dive, is, yeah, man, it's just heaven. It's amazing. You feel so great. It's, you know, it's a very, very good feeling of accomplishment and reward. It's very special.
Well, thank you for describing all that, and congratulations really on your successes and your most recent successes. And I, you mentioned the safety there, and I was shocked to take note that when you're down there at the plate, you're by yourself. There's no one
Yeah,
like, hey, are like checking on you. So the checking on is as you're ascending.
exactly. Well, the hypoxic incidents happen, 99% of them happen within that 30-meter and the surface. So risking another diver to go down deeper, you're basically having two free divers, double the risk. And so the safeties are within that danger zone. And actually, 90% or probably more of those incidents happen within the last 10 meters. In the case that something does happen at the bottom in the competition setting and you have a counter ballast and you're attached to the rope itself by a carabiner and a lanyard, so if something happens, they release a heavier plate, a heavier weight on the opposite side of the line, and through the pulleys, it brings the entire plate up and the diver with it as well. The having someone at the bottom of the plate is impossible logistically. It'd be a technical scuba dive where the amount of time that they could be there would be very insignificant, and it's super dangerous, and they would not be able to do anything. They would just be like, "Oh, he's here. I can't." They can't transport you up. You know, it takes a long time to go
How'd it go?
from.
Oh, hi.
Hey.
Sorry.
So it's, logistically it's impossible to safety in scuba. It's good to take pictures with it and document and watch, but at those depths you can't really scuba dive safely.
Got you. Uh, let's talk about then. How do you know from doing this so often where you're in a danger zone? What is that feeling like?
Um, you sometimes you don't know. Sometimes you don't have a clue because you're so hypoxic. I've had one blackout in my life in on depth and a couple in pool. And the pool actually helped me understand what that felt like because it's the only time that I really felt true hypoxia at my limits. I felt something weird in my legs, like a tingling kind of, and I had the same sensation in my dive when I blacked out. Um, but other than that, man, like watching it is easier to tell because you see some signs of hypoxia, like the stroke is breaking, the lactic acid is building, like the you can watch it. You are so focused inwardly that sometimes can't even tell that you're at your limit, and you start. We operate at our limit for extended periods of time, so sometimes unless you have a very strong symptom, you can't tell you're there until you're there, until you wake up and you're like, what?
So you said you blacked out one time. What was that experience?
This was in a competition this year in Asia, in one of the Asia Cup, or I can't remember exactly which one it was, a freediving challenge. But it was a no fins dive to a depth that I had done very easily last year. And it was equalization was easy. The dive fit great. And about 10 meters before the surface, I felt that same sensation I felt at the pool in my legs. And I was like, huh, this is weird. And then next thing I know, apparently I blacked out like 5 meters before the surface. And then I was just woke up, someone blowing on my face. Um, but you don't remember much and it doesn't feel anything. And, like you're suffering on the way up. So it's just like at some point lights go out. Um, this past year, I dealt with some health issues with my blood. I didn't know this, and one of the things that can happen if you overtrain is your hemoglobin your hematocrit and your red blood cells can drop to anemic levels. And I believe that's one of the reasons why the season didn't go as well. I overtrained and trained for too long, too hard, too much, and I think that had a negative impact on my diving. Last year was amazing. This year, I wasn't even able to. I was very close. I was 1 meter shy of what I did last year in no fins, but the other disciplines, I couldn't get back to where it was. That anemia kind of kicked my ass, and I stayed sick. A vertical blue, I was sick for like a month, and yeah, it was tough. It was a challenging year after riding the high of the year before. This year was different for sure.
So it was almost like you had so much great success in 22, and you're like, all right, I'm gonna pound this out. I'm gonna train. I'm gonna use this training to
Yeah,
go to a higher level, and it had
that
almost
was
the
the
opposite
thought.
effect.
Absolutely, man. This a
Wow.
funny thing, yeah. People talk about overtraining, like, yeah, not gonna happen to me until it happens to you.
So
So
in
we're our own worst enemies, and like we can't stand to not do things. We don't feel like we're doing enough, and it's how it is.
Bro, totally. And it's like I mean, I'm not comparing myself at all to you because you're like on the highest level there is, but it's like you go, and you're like, oh, I can just do this again next tomorrow. Like I don't know. For me, the recovery isn't as strong as the action, and uh, which leads me to my next question. What are the training mechanisms? Because if from the sounds of it, the athletic racing is almost another side to the coin to what you're doing. It's like that's intense, this is calming. And do you train in a calming manner, or do you train in an athletic style?
Both. There's it's not sustainable to do freediving training year round. I mean, maybe some people do it, but not to the intensity that I was doing it. Like, I mean, it's just exhausting, man. It's like, imagine if you were training for an Ironman and you never took a break. It feels like that. And some of the training are very, very demanding, man. Like you're in the pain cave quite a bit. You're uncomfortable a lot, and they're very mentally tough to know that you have to do it again a day later or 2 days later. And so that type of training is comparable to what we do for swimming. You're in a suffer hole, like you're doing that. Then now, like, the approach for freediving has become more of an athlete and a well-rounded approach. Before it was like a more like, we just dive, kind of like the surfers used to be. We just go surfing and that's our training. And now they have like conditioning and the different training programs to maximize their output. And obviously that's the best way to do it. So we have a strength phase where we're trying to build muscle. We're trying to mostly strength, not so much muscle. And then there's the component of the pool. In the pool, you can get more repetition, so you can get in the ocean for both hypoxia and CO2 tolerance, and also for stroke. Like, imagine if you do, even if it's just you do two 60-meter dives with no fins, that's it, bro. You're cooked. You're going home. You're going to sleep. But imagine how many repetitions, 60 meters underwater, you can get if you're in the pool to fine tune your technique. So it's extremely helpful to do that. And it depends on which aspect of freediving you're working, then the sensations and the approach is different. When we're doing depth sessions, even sometimes, and it depends what part of the cycle, it can be pretty miserable. We'll do tables where we're, instead of going in the pool this way, we're going that way. And there's short breathing intervals, and it sucks, and you get contractions, and your EQ sucks, and they're challenging. But there's other training sessions where the goal is to get a great feeling, to be relaxed, to master relaxation, and that's a completely different, different, yeah, different sensation altogether.
So you're in the off season now. What is your training regimen in the off season? What are the goals? Is it maintaining fitness, or is it taking it to a different space of fitness?
Well, I mean, it depends. This off season, man, I've been so busy this past few weeks with the house. I haven't had a chance to really do what I would like to do. And for me, is to get back in like shape, like we would go to tryouts a couple of months from now kind of shape. And that's not possible at the moment, but that in the off season, that's sort of my mental break from freediving as well. So I like to, get in good shape so that I'm a good swimmer, strong enough. And then when I start getting serious about the more specific training, then I'll start going more to the gym. Kind of maybe, I mean, it depends on where I am too, if I have access to a pool or not. Maybe the swimming takes a little bit of a backseat, but still part of my life. And then now, since I'm going to be in Puerto Rico for the beginning of my training, I'll throw in some surfing and some fun stuff in there, but it'll be mostly gym and pool. Um, right now, yeah, it's just to get back into where I feel good about my fitness level. When you're in the middle of competition season, you don't get to be a fit guy. You just got to rest a lot. And I miss being fit and feeling purposeful and feeling like I have a body that can do things I wanted to.
Absolutely. I want to take the conversation for a second to your experience on the Hollywood set. It from my homework, you were like the man to teach all these guys how to be underwater during Black Panther. And how was it? What was that experience like?
Man, I'm so lucky to have gotten to do that. It was, I mean, for one, it was great pay, but aside from that, it was amazing, man. I got to hang out with some really interesting and cool people, and I had to, even though I'm a freediving instructor, we don't have enough time to teach freediving to these people. It's the talent basically has a small task to get comfortable in a water tank that's only 15 foot deep, and they have so many other things that the amount of time that they can give us is very limited. So even though I'm an instructor, I've been teaching forever, I had to adapt and change things. And a lot of the people that were in the water were people that were not comfortable in the water, and that presents a set of issues itself that were actually very rewarding to overcome. It was a very beautiful experience. People were terrified of the tank, they were terrified of the water, and then it became their break. Then they were asking to get more water training, to come back for more in the pool, and that was very beautiful to see. And I got to be with these people for 6 months more even, and taken from being terrified of the tank to being their own man, to being proper free divers. Like some of those scenes in there were challenging, and to notch like the main bad guy, he was like at the end of the production, he didn't need me for anything. I was just like, to notch, you know what to do, just go kill it. And he did, man. He was so comfortable in the water, and just watching that whole journey, and the confidence that built for him. And now he can do it whenever he wants, and it's pretty great. And you got to see some big actors and actresses, and rub elbows with some Hollywood people, and it's an amazing experience, man. I don't know what else to say about it. I hope I get the chance to do it again. I think I did a good job, and they were pleased with it. Just now it's tough to get, with the strike going on and with all the traveling. It's not. I'm gonna have to give up one or the other. I want to do it again, but if I do, I won't be able to be competing in freediving.
What do you say to people out there who are inspired by your story, what you do, and but they might be like the Hollywood actors, afraid of getting into the tank, getting into the pool, getting into deep water in general?
Well, from my experience, and not just personal, but teaching, freediving is a mind opening thing. It's a journey that builds confidence, and it's beautiful. It's like you don't know what you're capable of until you try it, and it can help you overcome so many things in such a short period of time. It's beautiful. Don't be discouraged by being afraid of the water. We all were afraid of the water at one point. I remember almost shitting my pants the first time I saw a shark. Like those are things that you just get exposed to them, and it comes naturally. And I will go as far as to say that, you know, yes, I'm an elite free diver, but it's probably because not many people like you are free diving. If you quit your job and abandon your kids and took 3 years of free diving, you probably be a 100-meter free diver too.
Oh, bro.
So it's
I'm
like
yeah, no.
I'm not suggesting you do
Yeah, yeah.
that. I'm just saying, like, there's some myriad of normal people and even stud athletes that haven't tried it that have so much potential to become incredible free divers. But at the recreational level, it's just you're missing out if you don't give it the opportunity. It can change your life. It changed mine. Maybe it won't have the same impact it had in my life, but I can tell you, I've never had a person that didn't enjoy the experience, whatever they accomplished in the class or not, or in their diving.
Epic commentary there. Uh, I have two more questions. You've just totally crushed this seminar here. So dolphins, mammals, sea mammals. There's a thought that dolphins went from the sea to the land and then back to the sea again. And you spend a lot of time underwater. You know how to be underwater. What is your thought, your commentary on sea mammals and humans in that
Well,
capacity?
and this might go into things that are beyond my scope of knowledge. I know that we tap into what we call the mammalian dive reflex, and that's all based on what you talked about, that we evolved from mammalian, um, aquatic mammalians, and that's why we have that reflex still within us. Uh, Physiologically, the changes that happen during a free dive are very similar to the ones that dolphins, seals, and all marine mammals experience when they're diving. And the theory is that we evolved directly from them, and that's why we still have that reflex within us. Or so, yeah. I mean, I can't tell you definitively that that is the case, but it's what we've been saying and talking about in all our courses, that we evolved from mammals, and that's what we're capable. And when we have these mechanisms that allow us to dive, that's what we can subject our bodies to these pressures. That's what we can hold our breath for that long. That's what we have, like, all these physiological changes that happen very rapidly throughout a dive that we wouldn't know that they were possible unless we were diving. We have brachycardia, we have blood shunting, we have vasoconstriction and vasodilation. We have the spleen releases additional red blood cells, like all these, there's fluid in the lungs to compensate from preventing the lungs from collapsing, like all these mechanisms that we have that allow us to dive. I would like to think that they come from marine mammals.
You have a story or a particular incidence where you've encountered a dolphin on a dive or a sea mammal as such?
Yeah, man, I've had some experiences with both with whales, pilot whales, and dolphins. It is my girlfriend Siri has traveled the world and as well. She's a free diver and she's swam with orcas. And actually, that's one of the things that I would like to spend more time doing, is interacting with marine mammals. I would love to swim with humpbacks, and I mean, you can even do blue whales, sperm whales, but it's quite a commitment, both financially, travel wise, and time wise. But it's definitely something that I want to spend more time doing. They're incredible, smart, intelligent, sensitive creatures, and it's so beautiful to be with them.
We need to get you a water camera to do this, and that'll make it all happen. I feel.
Yeah.
Well, uh, Alex, before I let you go, I would like to. This is my final question. What is the meaning of life from your perspective?
To enjoy, man, to be kind and enjoy. Um, I don't want to get too philosophical, but those are things that I think are essential for us as humans to find a passion and something that brings you joy, and to always try to not do harm and be kind to others. And if we all did that, I think the world would be a better place.
Awesome. Alex, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. The amount of wisdom you've dropped on us was just incredible. This has been episode 22, Speaking from Water, with Alex Llinas. And buddy, I wish we can spend more time together in the future.
Man, we have to. We absolutely have to, Sean. It was my pleasure, man. I really enjoyed the conversation. The men crush goes both ways, dude. You're a stud. You're a savage. Everything you do, man, I much appreciate and follow. Man, I'll see you out there, and let's get training and diving together.
Let's go, dude. Respect to the highest level, and I'll see you soon.
See you, brother.
Later,
Bye.
bro.